Zelda's 40th anniversary is slowly but surely being teased by Nintendo, plus with Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment out, we know that a different Zelda game will be the 40th anniversary release. The next brand new 2D or 3D game? Most likely not, but there are multiple possibilities now that the Wild Era, at least when it comes to full-on cartridge games, is by all indications complete. In fact, we're already getting a first taste of what awaits us in 2026 through, fittingly, a Triforce. New Zelda content in Animal Crossing New Horizons before February 21st, and then a LEGO Zelda that is likely far more affordable than the Breath of the Wild / Ocarina of Time Great Deku Tree. An exclusive Ocarina of Time diorama of the boss chamber, so is this LEGO set a tease of the long anticipated Ocarina of Time remake. Maybe I will get back to it very soon in this video. But we also have the Zelda movie. With the first official screenshots of filming in New Zealand, and published by series creator Shigeru Miyamoto, it is clear that his and Wes Ball's movie will occupy a part of the later stages of Zelda's 40th anniversary. Already now, the visual images and leaked footage points to a Zelda movie that tries to replicate the brilliance of the Lord of the Rings movies, filmed in the same scenery, but with all that makes Zelda, Zelda. A blonde-haired, blue-eyed Link in green, as we have seen Benjamin Even Ainsworth is, Princess Zelda in royal blue, and taller than Link as Bo Bragason is, grey-haired Impa, and the one and only Epona. An interesting combination of the games. Not a movie retelling of, specifically, Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, or Breath of the Wild. No matter what, we'll see the first teaser trailer during this Zelda 40th anniversary. And all of what we have referenced so far, plus the free story and content DLC for Age of Imprisonment, is just a part of the biggest Zelda master plan, first teased by Nashweedle. As he said before the Nintendo Direct, the plan from Nintendo is extensive, though it isn't a year of Zelda like we saw with Luigi in 2013. Rather, a year-long affair of having a constant presence of the franchise from January to December, a celebration that will expand the franchise beyond traditional Zelda media. And LEGO Zelda and the Zelda movie fits in perfectly here, especially with the LEGO being Ocarina of Time, which remake Nashweedle has also been teasing. Naturally, as we are exiting 2025, the next game-specific Zelda reveal will come next year. That is right, 2026 marks a new beginning for Zelda, and with it the first new 3D Zelda art style since 2014. Still, the first new style doesn't necessarily have to be exclusive to the brand new next Zelda game that will succeed Tears of the Kingdom. It could also be a remake. Since 2016 also marks 15 years since Ocarina of Time introduced the era of the Zelda 3D remakes and remasters. Ocarina 3D in 2011 was followed by the Wind Waker HD in 2013, Majora's Mask 3D in 2015, Twilight Princess HD in 2016, Skyward Sword HD in 2021, and finally Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom in 4K in 2025. In other words, 3D Zelda cannot be updated, right? Wrong, since the hottest tip for the next full-on Zelda game release is a restart of this cycle of 3D remakes. Likely inspired by what Square Enix has been doing with Final Fantasy VII Remake since 2020, well, minus cutting up one game into 3 parts. But why go back to the 3D Zelda of old? Simple. Ocarina of Time, The Wind Waker, Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess cannot be enjoyed on Nintendo Switch 2 in their remade/remastered version. And in the case of Twilight Princess, the game is not yet playable at all on the Nintendo Switch 2. So Twilight in 4K for its 20th anniversary? It is more likely to get the original in GameCube Switch Online. Since the only true upgrade Ocarina of Time has received is really showing its 15 years in 2026. And even more so with Final Fantasy VII Remake out on Nintendo Switch 2 before the start of Zelda's 40th anniversary, it is a problem that the best looking version of the best rated game of all time is still stuck in 240p, and even this one doesn't have proper dual analog camera controls. In other words, Ocarina of Time fully redone for Nintendo Switch 2 is a goldmine that is just waiting to be taken advantage of. Nintendo is well aware that 3D Legend of Zelda is what really sells, and can thus serve as holdover titles, while the Zelda team is working on the first true, brand new Switch 2 exclusive, The Legend of Zelda title. A game that will definitely not come out in 2026 or 2027 for certain. Thus Nintendo needs to fill the gap, and restarting the remake cycle, but now in upscaled 4K and 60 FPS, will literally be the perfect transition to the next generation of Zelda. Ocarina of Time Remake will no doubt break the internet if announced, and is an easy candidate for 10+ million copies sold throughout the Nintendo Switch 2's lifecycle. Way more than they can sell of Age of Imprisonment or any Hyrule Warriors for that matter. Why? Since Ocarina of Time is the best rated game of all time and one of the best selling Zelda games with a reputation that is even greater than Final Fantasy VII. If the rumor from Nashweedle that this remake is handled by Nintendo is correct, then 2026 will be a far greater year for this franchise than 2025. Since it all comes down to gameplay, and Ocarina has massive potential for improvement in a final remake. Dual analog camera controls, better performance, visual overhaul, and new art style for the upscaled 4K machine are just minimum. But it can also add to that a bigger and less limited Hyrule to appeal to the much bigger open-air gameplay fanbase, and so on. And to make it even better, add some cut content from the N64 original, and none will be greater than finally adding the Light Temple. Or even add the extras that you had on the 3DS. So Boss Rush mode, and of course, the original Master Quest, which was also on the GameCube. In effect, you could have a pretty much new Ocarina of Time, which stays true to its timeline placement and lore, but also expands here on what is already there. Or more specifically, makes it just as alive as it is in the story cutscenes of open-air Zelda and Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Proper voice acting, and perhaps also in the entire game, matching and surpassing Final Fantasy VII Remake. And in many ways, being a taste of the next generation of Zelda. 10+ million copies sold, it can easily be followed by Majora's Mask. As such, is an Ocarina of Time remake the first Zelda reveal of 2026? It absolutely could be, and tie closely to the Link vs Ganondorf LEGO diorama set. If we are to follow what happened with the last two Zelda remasters/remakes, they were all revealed early. In the case of 2019's Link's Awakening, and 2021's Skyward Sword HD, it was the first Nintendo Direct in February of those years. So as early as January, or more likely February, depending on what Nintendo is planning for the 40th anniversary. And then a summer release between July and September. Perfect with 20+ million Nintendo Switch 2s on the market. At the same time, we're entering a true Zelda unknown in the upcoming months, as Nintendo and the Zelda team is officially done with the 3D Zelda that lasted pretty much a decade and gave us 2 Zelda and 2 Hyrule Warriors titles. All that is left for the markets outside of Japan is the localization of Masterworks' Tears of the Kingdom. Though with the recent timeline and lore revealed in Age of Imprisonment, it can be expected that the English version prepared by Dark Horse Comics might be different and thus bigger. In fact, the end of this fiscal year, so to March 31st, 2026, could be dominated by finishing up the Wild and Tears era, plus revealing a remake and then bringing the biggest new guns for the new fiscal year. So an Ocarina remake could only be the start of the reveal that would truly make this the bigger anniversary. The first look of the next brand new 3D Zelda game. A game that we know has been in development for quite some time, as Tears of the Kingdom had no DLC and only 30 members of the Zelda team helped out with Age of Imprisonment. A new generation of Zelda coming out sometime in the final years of the 2020s. As truth is, the Nintendo Switch 2 is still lacking in revealed upcoming brand new mainline 10 million plus top sellers. That is to say, not Switch 2 editions, but the next new Animal Crossing, Smash Bros, 3D Zelda, 3D Mario, and new Pokemon generation. Pokemon Gen 10 will by all indications by February 27th, but the next Zelda will more likely be waiting for the next Nintendo fiscal year, just like we saw in 2019 for the first look and 2021 for the Sky Islands debut of the later Tears of the Kingdom. In other words, Ocarina of Time 4K reveal or some other Zelda remake before March 31st. So that is in the current fiscal year. And then the reveal of the next Zelda game with its brand new art style in the new fiscal year. The end of the longest wait for the reveal of a brand new 3D Zelda game, and with it, the first brand new 3D Zelda map since 2014. That is all I will say about the next Zelda game. Since less than 1 year from the upload of this video, I think we'll be having the following trifers. Own the next Zelda remake, having our first look of the next open-air Zelda game, and watch the first teaser trailer of The Legend of Zelda movie. Add to that Masterworks Tears of the Kingdom plus Age of Imprisonment book in English, plenty of new merchandise, and maybe even a theme park section announcement. Right here you see how Zelda's 40th anniversary is getting bigger than the 35th, 30th, and might even rival the big 25th. Or what do you think of the teasers and hints to the big Zelda anniversary? Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell to not miss anything. Last but not least, a big thanks to you for watching and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to Raw Producer, Jonathan, and Heroes, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf, and Gintaro. You all rock, and please enjoy these awesome videos.